Peace and welcome back to the Cards Behind the Crime. This is a part two or a follow up video to the first video that I did about Ed Gein and his mother and their connection, both from like the life spread and the pure spread in the cards. But in this video, I wanted to look at the age Ed Gein was when his mother passed away and just to see what was like happening both from his birth card spread and his planetary ruling card spread, just to give a little bit more insight. I was actually asked to do this video. Someone had commented to say, can I look at it from the age when his mother passed, and then we can really get even some more understanding and insight to the cards that he was playing, the energy around everything, and maybe even get a better idea of what may have prompted him to do what he did. So from my research, his mother passed when he was 39. His mother passed in December, I believe, of 1945, and he had turned 39 earlier that year in August, because he is a Queen of Hearts Virgo, which makes him a Queen of Hearts birth card, and his planetary ruling card is the Ten of Clubs. So we're going to look at it from both of those cards. So this is age spread 39 that we're looking at, this plate. And I'm going to zoom in so it can be a little bit bigger so everybody can see it better. Make sure I got all the cards on there. We don't need the planets. And let me move me just a little bit over. Okay. So we know Ed Gein is the Queen of Hearts. And at 39, he was sitting in the house of the Ten of Hearts. You see the Ten of Hearts right here. So the card to the bottom right is the card that you're displacing or the card that you're renting a space from for the year, because this is where the Ten of Hearts naturally sits on the life spread. So the Queen of Hearts, Ed Gein's card, was displacing or sitting in the house of the Ten of Hearts when his mother passed. Now his planetary ruling card, which happens to be the Ten of Clubs, was also in this Jupiter line and displacing or sitting in the house of the Six of Diamonds. So they're really similar spreads, right? So we're going to look at it from this lens. And what's interesting, not only was he displacing the Ten of Hearts, but the card crowning him, or the card he looks up to, was also that Ten of Hearts. And what is the Ten of Hearts? Just a basic explanation. Big card of like big emotions, big heart, big love, big family energy, a big family card. It's a 10, so it can definitely represent like expansion, mass amounts, popularity, exposure, etc. But since he was already probably experiencing a lot of psychological issues, this probably just amplified his desire for love, his desire for connection. Being a heart, naturally, that is something that the heart suits really like need, is that love, that connection, those strong that feelings, etc. And again, this is a very strong card of family, and this is the year, the plate, that his mother passed away. So he may have felt very abandoned in that realm. Now I'm almost positive that he would have been, let's see, end of August, September, October, November, December. I want to say he was probably either finishing out his Venus period and getting ready to go into his Mars period, or was already in his Mars period when his mother passed away. So just kind of remember that. Now, like I said, he was displacing the Ten of Hearts, and his planetary ruling card was displacing the Six of Diamonds. And his long range card, which is another energy that we kind of get for the whole year, was actually the Ten of Clubs. So he's displacing a Ten of Hearts in his birth card spread, and the long range card, or like the yearly card, was also the Ten of Clubs. So it's separate from that being his planetary ruling card, even though they're the same card. So that's a lot of 10 for someone who may not, be able to handle a lot of that energy. And in the previous video, I talked about how the Ten of Clubs can be the card of insomnia, multiple thoughts, even like almost even schizophrenic at times. And I believe he was diagnosed with schizophrenia later on. So a lot of the thoughts, the voices, the mind playing tricks on you. So in the midst of his losing his mother, he was dealing with these big 10 energies. Could have been very overwhelming. A lot of feelings, thoughts, and how to manage all of that, especially given his upbringing and her intensity of the religious aspect. Now, what's really fascinating on this plate, the environment card for him, and the environment card is the card that is sitting in your natural house. So since he is a Queen of Hearts, we have to go to, where does the Queen of Hearts naturally sit? Neptune, Neptune. Well, look who is here. His mother's card, the Seven of Clubs. So she was sitting in his natural house the year that she passed, from his plate. I haven't looked at her plate at the age that she was. Maybe that's another video. But for this video, we're just going to be looking at his plate. But I did find it very interesting that she was sitting in his house. That's also his environment card. Add the 10 of clubs as the long range card. Add the 10 of clubs as his planetary ruling card. And the long range card for the 10 of clubs was for him the Queen of Diamonds. So another mother. What are queens? The mothers. So very strong energy of the mother, the year that his mother passed away. Now, let's go through the spread. Right, here's his birth card spread. And I already said he's displacing the 10 of Hearts, but the 10 of Hearts is also crowning him. And then his Mercury card is the 6 of Clubs, right? And so there could have been where, in the very beginning of that year for him, he could have been getting messages, downloads, because that is what the 6 of Clubs card is, the messenger, receiving messages, giving messages. Could have been a little bit more slower getting things going. That's a big thing with the sixes, a lot of effort. And this is a very strong card of having to be responsible with the things that you say, because as we look at the number 6, what does it do? It starts at the top and then it goes back down and into itself. So you get back what you put out with sixes, especially as Mercury, where that is rules our communications, our thoughts, our ideas, and our beliefs. He could have definitely been fluttered or flustered with all different types of messages that it could have been coming, and may have had a hard time like distinguishing, is this real or is it not? And in the series, at least after his mother passed, he really still believed she was there. So, that distortion was very strong for him. Now, his Venus card was the 2 of Clubs. So again, and I like I said, I think that she probably passed either in this Venus period or right as he got to the Mars period, which is the 2 of Spades. But what I find interesting too, and I don't really go into the vertical too often when I do these videos, but for this point I am going to. So the direct Mercury was the 6 of Clubs, the vertical was the 10 of Hearts. The direct Venus was the 2 of Clubs, and the vertical was the 9 of Clubs. So there could have been, and what are nines? Endings, completions, graduations, deaths, cycles coming to fulfillments, right? And so the 2 of Clubs and the 9 of Clubs, almost like talking to her beyond the grave, right? Because 2 of Clubs is a very strong communicative card, very expressive, great for that back and forth banter. But if the person isn't there, yet you were still continuing the conversation as if they were, right? But also what we know about 2s, they can be codependent, fears, control. So a lot of fears may have been like sparked or started up, in the midst of her passing for him. But this definitely could have been something that, created this false illusion of her still being there and him not wanting her to be gone, and yet still speaking to her as if she was actually there. Let's see, the Mars card is the 2 of Spades with the 8 of Spades. So again, I'm not 100% sure what period he was in when she passed. I can go back and check and get 100%, but I my guess is roughly around in this time frame, just based on his birthday and the time of year that she passed. And so that would make the Mars the 2 of Spades for him, and the vertical be the 8 of Spades. And this could have, the 2 of Spades and Mars is also about the partnerships, friendships, working relationships, the connecting with others and trying to create partnerships without that friction, without that control, without that dominance. And then add the 8 of Spades. Again, it was almost like even after she passed, she was still trying to kind of control or bully him, at least based on the series and based on, their relationship, right? So he may have still felt very bullied or even controlled by his mother, even in the midst of her passing, or even up to the passing as well, just based on the cards he has. His Jupiter card was the Six of Spades and the Queen of Clubs. So as you see, there's a lot of Queen energy for him based on the two spreads, because like I said, the long range card for the Ten of Clubs, his planetary ruling is the Queen of Diamonds, and then the Queen of Clubs being a vertical Jupiter with this Six of Spades. Now sixes are very karmic, very destiny, very fate, very alignment. And when there's a six in Jupiter, we're usually on the receiving end of the things that we've done in the past. And again, even the Queen of Clubs, like I jokingly say, like the sixes, specifically the Six of Clubs and the Queen of Clubs, are like the cards that can see dead people. It's just because they have very strong psychic abilities, that those messages that can come from the other side, the veil is thin with them. They're very connected to the Ace of Spades, which is a very strong card of like the afterlife, the afterworld, or whatever you want to call it. So there could have been, again, those connections with her, speaking to her, even almost like seeing her and feeling her presence, even in the midst of her passing, right? And this could have been, again, the mother still kind of being around and still trying to want to have that dominance in his life. And he didn't know how to like separate that, right? Now, the Saturn card for him was the Four of Diamonds, and then the vertical to that would be the Seven of Hearts. And when there's a Seven of Hearts in Saturn, there can be feelings of like abandonment, jealousy, emotional turmoil. You know, it's a very strong swing energy. And then you're adding the emotions, you add Saturn. You know, he may have very much suffered from, like with her passing, like feeling like she abandoned him, like he wasn't good enough. There could have been a lot of emotional turmoil with those cards in Saturn. Now, there could have been some financial stuff that came in, maybe through her passing. He may have inherited the land, the farm that they had, etc. And I do think he was even like working after she passed, and was like going into town doing like little jobs around town, handyman stuff. So maybe to help, you know, to balance out those strong emotions that he may have been dealing with. Now, his Uranus card was the Three of Spades. This could have been a trigger, you know, sudden worry, sudden stress, sudden, because that is something you'll find with the Three of Spades. It can definitely bring like you're at a crossroads. Now, it can also bring a lot of creativity, a lot of expression, a lot of opportunity, a lot of experimentation, but it also can bring worry, fear, doubts. And then I believe the vertical to that would be the Five of Hearts. So again, a lot of instability, a lot of change. You see, there's those hearts kind of supporting a lot of this energy. So his emotions were probably not grounded, stable, secure in any type of way. So he very well could have felt like he, you know, alone, lost, not sure what to do, stressed, overwhelmed. And that could also be a trigger to, you know, what then portrayed after her passing. Let's see, his Neptune card was the Four of Clubs. Now, this being in Neptune can bring a lot of like psychic impressions, knowing things, you know, getting messages even through dreams. And maybe that was something he was experiencing, like the dreams, the visions, etc. There's not a vertical to that because, as you see, we run out. This is his birth card, so there's no vertical to the Four of Clubs in Neptune. So definitely could have been challenging for him if he was experiencing a lot of like the voices, the visions, and again, maybe even like falsely creating stability because that's what he really wanted, ideally. And then that what's interesting is the Pluto card for him that year was the Four of Spades. And fours do kind of represent the home, the fourth house, the ancestors, the family, stability, solid, you know, and so again, and this, you know, could have been a health issue for him. He may have gone under a lot of stress, and he was maybe even trying to recreate, you know, more stability even after her passing, you know, like still thinking she was there and trying to recreate that structure and that contentment that the fours usually really bring. But since it's in Pluto, it could have been very challenging for him to have that energy, right? To have that stability. And that was what he was really yearning for. The result card was the Seven of Diamonds. Again, maybe through her passing, he inherited some kind of financial blessing or, inheritance. We know this as the millionaire's card. And I always say millionaires don't have a broke mindset. So maybe he, again, and I do believe he was like getting out and working more. And maybe this was something that, he was trying to attract more financial opportunity, especially early on, back in those days, $5 was a lot of money, so maybe he was doing odd jobs to make money to keep up the family farm that I think they had going, or whatever where they lived. Now the cosmic lesson was the Ace of Hearts. And again, another heart, and like that, needing that love, needing that affection, a strong yearning for love, a strong yearning for affection and attention. And again, looking outside of himself, right? This can be a very powerful card when you just have a strong desire to be loved. And it is very much about having to fulfill yourself from within and not look to outside sources for that love. But again, since he was probably already emotionally and psychologically not well, this could have triggered, again, needing that love and still then trying to create his mother still being there, even though she had passed. The cosmic moon was the Five of Clubs, which then would also put like those emotions kind of as a roller coaster, not a lot of stability, even like the mental still kind of wandering. And maybe this is why he would wander into the graveyard at night and feel like the connection and really communicating with her there or anybody else. And because this can definitely be a very detached energy as a moon, so there could have been a lot of detachment, and maybe he needed that because of all the other emotional aspects. And then the transformation card for him that year was the Two of Diamonds. So again, that strong yearning to partner, to not probably want to be alone, with his mom passing. So very interesting to kind of see his spread when she passed. Now, again, I mentioned that the long range card was the Ten of Clubs. And the fact that her card was sitting in his house is very like uncanny or very telling of their, connection. It was almost like, yeah, she left, but she really didn't. You know what I mean? You're still very overbearing, even in death. And especially for him who could not separate, I think that just made it, just amplified it even more. And maybe he didn't process it. And, again, that's what led him to do what he did by getting her out of the grave and like having her in their house. And again, with that Ten of Clubs being very like overly stimulated in the mind and not being able to know reality from not reality. Now, what I really want to show too is, remember the planetary ruling card being the Ten of Clubs. And again, if his mom passed like in that Venus Mars time frame, the Venus card for the Ten of Clubs was the Queen of Hearts, the mother, right? Even though it wasn't her specific birth card, this is still a mother card. And then the vertical to that, the vertical Venus was a Nine of Diamonds. So you can see the death of his mom, right, in his spread from both the birth card spread and the planetary ruling card spread, because of the Queen of Hearts being here with that Nine of Diamonds and Venus. And so very much can see like the passing of her, and he valued her, right? And it was probably very hard for him to process. And I also want to look at, I believe the long range card for him in this spread was a Queen of Diamonds, right? So the mother, another mother energy, that's what queens represent. So when we look at both his birth card and his planetary ruling card spread, we can really get a kind of just an energetic impression of what he was dealing with, where he was, right? Now for the Ten of Clubs, I mean, they're obviously very similar with the cards because they're kind of in the same line, if you will. But the Pluto card for that Ten of Clubs was the Three of Spades. And again, the Three of Spades on the low side can be hypochondria, worry, stress, not really being able to, make decisions and can come with like severe panic and severe worry, and then you freeze, and there could become a lot of procrastination. So it's very interesting and very telling to see, just based on his plate, what was going on for him energetically through these spreads. And even with the transformation card, which would be the Ace of Hearts to that 10 of Clubs, it was almost like even in her passing, he got to kind of be reborn. And what's wild is that's displacing the 7 of Clubs, which is her card. So the fact that even in his planetary ruling card spread, and it's crazy. Wow. When I really like stop and think about that, because I didn't look at this prior to the video. Like, I'm looking at this the first time with y'all, and and you'll watch, like, my brain will start to process it. I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa. It was sitting in the sun, the Ace of Diamonds. That is wild when you think about it, that when we look at it from the 10 of Clubs spread, which is his planetary ruling card, like I said, the Pluto is the 3 of Spades. The result card was the 4 of Clubs. The cosmic lesson was the 4 of Spades. The cosmic moon was the 7 of Diamonds. But what's really telling is the transformation card was the Ace of Hearts. And that Ace of Hearts was literally sitting in the house of the 7 of Clubs, which is his mother's card. So in this, right, maybe her death allowed a rebirth for him. In a new opportunity, because it was almost like, even though she was still dominating from the afterlife in his mind, but essentially, like, this is very telling that, he really, at least in the series too, how they portrayed it was like he kind of like went on about his life, right? And I think, and that's when that woman in the series came around more, right? And again, that's a strong yearning for love, a strong yearning for connection. And so with her passing, maybe he felt free and he could get a fresh start. But it's just wild that Ace of Hearts is sitting in the 7 of Clubs house. It's very, very strongly connected with them two. It's just so telling. So anyways, I can probably spend a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to look at the plate, that the age that he was when she passed, so we can get a better understanding. And I always look at like the whole plate, and that's why I had scrolled up a little bit to see what was sitting in Jupiter, or in the sun, which is the Ace of Diamonds, and then what is sitting in Jupiter, which was the 6 of Clubs. So again, the messages, right, that they could have been very strong, and he maybe really thought she was still there, and so he couldn't decipher from reality and fiction, or not reality, right? So I mean, I definitely think that he was experiencing like a breakdown of some sort and could not, decipher between the two. And even with, like I said, what's in Pluto, the 3 of Spades, could have been very stressful, very overwhelming, very triggering to create. And so he really wanted to create more stability, as you can see with the 4 of Clubs being the result card and this 4 of Spades being the Pluto card to his own card. He just wanted that security. He just wanted that safety. And so I think his logic at the time was to resurrect her, if you will, because that's what gave him safety. Without her, he may have felt lost and stressed. So that was why he did what he did, to kind of recreate that mother energy, because in his mind, that's what was his protection, right? So anyways, really interesting to look at it from this lens of the age that he was when she passed away. I appreciate the suggestions on the video to be able to dive more. And if you have any more suggestions, please reach out. You can always go to my website, thefulldeck.net, and send me an email. Please subscribe to my email list. I send out weekly energy updates of the card of the week. I also do when the new month hits. And I always do like specials sometimes for readings. And if you're interested in a reading for yourself or anybody in your family, I do family readings, relationship readings, yearly readings, and birth card readings. Please go to thefulldeck.net where you can see all the offerings that I have and all the services. I also have ebooks on the cards, merchandise on the cards. As you see, I love these cards. They can definitely be very telling into someone's life and age spread when something, even tragic can happen. Even look at the nines, like all three of these nines right here. I know they're not in his like direct spread except for vertically, because when you look, I mean, both his vertical Venuses were the nines, the nine of clubs and the nine of diamonds. So there's that ending, right? That, may have been obviously a catalyst to what prompted him to do what he did. So with that, thank you for watching. I look forward to doing more videos on different cases that we can look at through the lens of the cards. This is the cards behind the crime. Have a good one.